Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. My name is Kristen. This is my booktube, and first of all, my apologies for the lack of a video last week. I got some pretty devastating news early last week. I don't really feel like sharing much more than that, but I was just not in a good mental state last week, so I decided not to stress myself out anymore by trying to crank out a video when I am not doing great mentally. So that is the reason why I did not post anything last week. And I am doing slightly better this week. Now I feel like I can get back to making some more bookish content for you all. So for today's video, we are going to be talking about my June TBR. It is Saturday, May 31st, as I am recording this right now. So I'm working on making some more progress on the books that I am currently reading before May actually ends. But I have also been thinking ahead to what I want to read in June. So I figured for this week's video, that would be the perfect thing to talk about. So we'll start with the books that I am currently partway through right now. I don't think that there's any way that I'm going to finish any of these before the start of June. So I'm pretty sure that they're going to be rollovers, so we can go ahead and talk about them just a little bit. And as I think I have maybe mentioned in a previous video, maybe I didn't, I can't remember, but I did recently do a reread of The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes so that I could read Sunrise on the Reaping, and I have started Sunrise on the Reaping. I am not very far into it because I keep having to pause it to think about every little crumb of information that is thrown my way, and I feel like I'm going to end up making some sort of like Hunger Games conspiracy theory type video where I talk about all of the connecting threads between the different books, because every time I've read one of the prequels, both the first time I read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, the second time I read it, and now reading Sunrise on the Reaping, there are just so many through lines and plot points that connect through all of the books and themes that emerge repeatedly through all of the books that I just need to talk about them with someone. And I don't really have many friends that were sucked into the Hunger Games the same way I was. So when I talk to other people about the Hunger Games series and they don't have the same, like, I'm gonna say level of investment because that makes me sound a little less crazy. Maybe? I don't know, maybe that's just my wishful thinking, but I just feel like I'm in so much deeper than a lot of other people that I'm around, so I need to channel that energy somewhere, and I think that making a video like that may be the best option. But that also means that I have to actually sit down and script out a video, which I don't usually do. If you can't tell, these are usually unscripted videos. I have a general idea of what I want to talk about, and then I just sit down and start yapping. So there's not a lot of structure that goes into these, and that means that I have to sit down and actually like plan out a video in order to do an information heavy one like that. So that is a long-winded way of saying that I am reading Sunrise on the Reaping, and there may be some sort of thematic breakdown of the Hunger Games universe that I might be doing in the future. I'm not making any promises, but I can definitely see myself getting so deep in this rabbit hole that I don't want to leave, so that's the next logical step for me. Then after I finish Sunrise on the Reaping, I do want to go back and do a reread of the Hunger Games. I just think that once I get through Sunrise on the Reaping, it's going to change the way that I read the Hunger Games trilogy, the same way that Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes did. So I'm very curious to see what, if anything, changes for me in that reread. So I am fully anticipating on doing a reread of all three of those as well. Whether I get to them in June or not is still up for debate, but that is the path that I have chosen as of right now, and I don't see myself really deviating from that anytime soon. And while we are on the topic of rereads, I did also start a reread of Fourth Wing. It has been probably like 2 years since I read Fourth Wing for the first time, and I already know from like only being an hour into my reread of that book that I did not remember a lot of stuff that happened at the beginning of the book. And so I want to do a reread of that book and Iron Flame so that I can read Onyx Storm. And it's now obvious to me that I should have probably done a reread of Fourth Wing before reading Iron Flame. because I did not remember that Jack Barlow was there from the very beginning. I forgot about the whole scene on the parapet. I forgot that he was the crazy dude trying to kill Violet as she was going across the parapet, and that he was one of her OG haters, okay? How I forgot that detail, I don't know. I just remembered him as the crazy guy on the parapet and did not commit his name to memory. So I was a little surprised when he showed up like 10 minutes into the book, but I think that the reread is going to prove to be very useful for me, because I think I just read so many books that I'm bound to forget details of at least some of the books. So that is why I do as many rereads as I do for ongoing series. So those are my main reread categories. And then the rest of the books that I have in mind for reading in June are surprisingly nonfiction books. And they are quite heavy books. They are more on the historical, political, current events side of genres than my normal books that I read. And the first one that I actually started last night, One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This. And I started reading this because I have seen a lot of buzz about it since it came out in, I believe, February. I've seen people I follow online talking about it. It's really highly rated on Goodreads, and I wanted to pick it up and read it. There was no wait for the ebook copy from my library, so I picked it up and I started reading it last night, and it's a lot. It's a heavy book. I'm only about like 25% of the way in. So this is a book that really focuses on the genocide that is currently happening to the Palestinian people at the hands of the Israeli government. And I know that that is a very heavy topic, but it is what is currently happening. And there's so much propaganda that is surrounding Israel in general and the actions that the Israeli government takes. And there's a very dangerous trend of people conflating the actions of the Israeli government with the entirety of Judaism. And I wanted to educate myself a bit more by reading some literature about Israel and Palestine. I did not go into this book completely oblivious to what's going on, but what I really wanted was to hear about someone's personal experience living in the Middle East, growing up in the Middle East, and being so close to the Israeli occupation that has been going on for the last 75 years. It feels wrong to say that I've really been enjoying this book so far, but I really have been. It is a book that really forces me to feel uncomfortable and reckon with what has been happening since October 7th, 2023, and even long before that as well. And that is exactly what I wanted from this book, especially when, as it's stated in the book, it is so much infinitely easier to just pretend like it's not happening. As someone with a background in history who has read a lot about past human atrocities, I mean, I literally have a book right next to me about the Armenian genocide. Like, I know the depravity of humanity and how horrific people can be to each other in the world. What I really don't want is to remain ignorant because that's the comfortable option. That's not what I want to do for anything. I always want to educate myself. I always want to get to the root and truth of whatever current event or historical event that I am wanting to learn about. And this is no different. So why would I treat it any differently, even if it makes me uncomfortable and makes me think about Western civilization in a different way? So all that to say, I am currently reading this book. It is a pretty short book. It's under 200 pages. So I should be able to finish it fairly early in June. And then I'll be able to give more of my thoughts on the book. But so far, 25% of the way in, I think that it is beautifully written. I really enjoy how the author has tied together his own personal experience in with what is happening in Palestine right now. It is a good combination of memoir and also political commentary, and it is woven together in such a way that is really reflective of how the daily atrocities of the Palestinian genocide are weaved into the everyday life of people with similar backgrounds to the author. It is a very heavy read. It is an uncomfortable read to a certain extent to be a white Westerner who lives in the United States. But as a historian, I do know more than the average person, I would say, about America's horrible actions in other countries in the last 100 or so years. So it's not necessarily surprising, but it does make me feel uncomfortable nonetheless. And it is really causing me to come face to face with and reckon with some of the things that I really despise about how America acts and is perceived on the global stage. I feel like living in the US, there is a very specific image that is projected to us about how the US is perceived in other countries, and it doesn't match up. Like, there are reasons why other countries do not like Americans, and in my opinion, it's very justified, because if you were able to be empathetic and put yourself in the shoes of someone in another country that has been absolutely dominated and demolished by the United States military-industrial complex, it's hard not to see why there is so much distaste for Americans around the world. And I want so badly to be proud of my country and be proud of where I'm from. But once those rose-colored glasses are removed, it's really hard to be proud of a country who is actively funding a genocide. And I guess since we're talking about some heavy topics and more political books, another book that I have on my list that I've actually already borrowed from my library and added to my Kindle is Three Worlds by Avi Shlaim. And similarly, this book also has to do a lot with the history of Israel and Palestine. I believe it came out in like 2024. I could be wrong, but it did come out fairly recently. And the author is an Arab Jew. So I really wanted to see his perspective and read this book. This is one that I also heard about online, and I immediately checked my local library to see if it was available. And I'm very interested to dig into this, but I have not actually cracked the cover yet, so I can't really tell you much about it other than it is written by an Arab Jew whose family in, I believe, 1950 left Iran for Israel. And continuing with some heavier books, I do have The Burning Tigris near me because I do want to at least try to start this book this month, since I'm on this current events, political / historical reading mood right now. So I want to at least start this book. And similarly, I also would like to start An American Martyr in Persia. And this one I actually did find an audiobook for as well, so I'll probably be listening to the audiobook while I'm reading this one. I haven't checked for the audiobook for this one, but I do really like having the audiobook, especially since there are some Arabic words and cities that I don't necessarily know the pronunciation of. I would really like to find an audiobook version of this one as well, so that I can actually learn how these places and words are pronounced. Then I guess I will end this TBR video with a little bit of a lighter hearted book, I guess. I do also have a hold on Riley Sager's Survive the Night with my local library, so hopefully that will come up at some point too, because I definitely think I'm going to need a little bit of fiction to break up some of these books, maybe even a rom-com, something that's more lighthearted and funny, but I'm basically going to resort to that as needed, as like a palate cleanser kind of, because I just want to make sure that I have a plan so that I don't get overwhelmed with the information that I'm reading and just completely stop reading these books. Because I'm reading these nonfiction books to learn more, to broaden my mind, and make sure that I'm more informed on the history and current events of some of the most pressing issues that are going on right now. And I just need to take steps to make sure that I do actually finish all of these books. So I just want to have that as a way to keep me going through reading these really heavy and emotionally taxing books. So yeah, with that, that is pretty much it for my June TBR. I know that it's a little bit heavier than my normal TBRs are. I have said multiple times on this channel that I am not a nonfiction girly, but when I say that, I mostly mean like self-help type books. Like, I read Atomic Habits, but that was not my choice. That was a book club choice. I probably would never pick up a book like Atomic Habits on my own, but I do occasionally pick up history books when I feel like there's a gap in my knowledge that I need to fill, and this is the current gap in my knowledge that I want to remedy right now. So yeah. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and leave a like down below. Let me know. You should also subscribe while you're down there because I typically put out a video every week that is at least somewhat bookish related. So yeah, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!